Fornhan.Ponsan, enroll now and become part of the story. For you will this probably be the first time coming into contact with magical language, and for that will I start this class off with a tip. Forget everything you know about human language. But now, first of all, should we talk about the different classes of magical creatures. There are those that are just regular animals. Your horses and fireflies and squids. Not only do they possess no magic, but are obviously incapable of speech. They may have the ability to understand what we say, to some degree, but only with lots and lots of training, and there's no way of consistently communicating with them. You will mostly just need to respond to whatever they do, as even body language will not be all that helpful with the majority of them. Now the next group are then magical animals, and their major difference is the ability of some magic, but some of the more intelligent magical animals will be able to understand simple words. Don't think that that means you will be able to hold some conversation with them, however. There are three groups of magical animals. For one, those that cannot speak at all. Then there are those that can speak but are not able to control it. What I mean with that is that they will simply utter words that they think about. This doesn't mean they just constantly run around speaking, but instead if they want something from someone else, they say it. For example, if you would get near them, where they have their food, is it not uncommon that they will either say klam or biram. Now, what this means is different from what these words will translate to, but for such a simple scenario, it will most likely mean that is mine. And then there isn't much different to the third type, who speak and act almost identical, but they are able to react to what you say, more directly instead of using words as just a one-way street. That is the type of language you can expect from magical animals at most. The next in line will be magical beings, and they are the least defined class, where the exact boundary is supposed to be that magical beings can speak, but neither have an own language or form bigger societal structures, is in reality these days that border far too gray to even call it one. This all boils down to the biggest issue we face when trying to categorize them, with nature not being neat and tidy, letting itself get categorized how we want it. These days, if something is a magical being, you can expect them to have some more complex thoughts. Then the last group will be magic societies. They are seen as the next runner-up to humans. Almost all will have also a unique language, and they are also the least populated group. There's usually only one magic society per grander region. Now this rule would lead to sometimes demoting some magic societies to magical beings, and vice versa, and therefore is the reason why some magical beings have unique languages and some magic societies have none. Now, the interesting question is on how it is that all magical creatures have the same language, and the answer to that is not really. It's complicated. For starters, these symbols of the magical script are universal. They are used and understood by all using magical language. Now, a trait for magic societies is that they no longer have a need of that, so they in fact not all even know magical language to begin with. Some even know human language over it, as they live so close to humans that they have assimilated into our society. Also in terms of speaking, where you quickly realize that even if they on a theoretical level use the same words, do they not have the same meaning. But the history behind all of this is simply that it is out of necessity, that they all speak the same, as magical creatures simply don't have the space to live like humans as a group separated outside of regular contact range. That means every time they come into contact, will all advances in their language get reverted to communicate properly. Combining this with how simple the majority of magical creatures speak, has everything gotten stagnant once it spread out, and only those of higher intelligence would be able to function with a changing language. On top is one thing being done that will not be listed most of the time in terms of consistent sound changes. If you look inside a lexicon, will you see the basic form of a word, but certain magical creatures will swap out certain letters for others to suit their way of speaking better. That being said, are the two types of words, those that are basic words and those that are compound words. Basic words will be the ones we will learn first, and as their name implies, are there nothing more than one word, one symbol. This, however, does not include one meaning. Compound words, also as the name implies, are made of two symbols for one word. The script is written by combining these symbols, and the speech follows combination words of the separate words. This means you can always hear what something is based off, but as not all words have 100% unique patterns, will it be up for context if you never heard the word out of what it is made. For the script, the issue will not exist, as there all symbols are unique, or be they sometimes similar in some cases. But before we go into anything deeper, we will start with the commonly used sounds and how to pronounce words when you see the transcript. First of all are there 4 vowels in A, R, I, O. You will often see that magical creatures say E instead of A, and U instead of O. On top, do not all use the vowel R, and instead use the consonant R. On the other hand, are others, especially feline and canine races, extremely sensitive on the difference. But don't fear too much. Most of the time, if you say words as written in a lexicon, should you be able to understand. And while it will sound complicated and certainly is, most of the time sound changes easy to understand. And before we go over to consonants, is it time to address the issue with R. As non-mages are not using this letter, were typewriters invented with no space for this extra letter, while during that time some opted to draw it on afterwards. Did with the age of computers that possibility go away? This leads to the search of an alternative. And as the Enya looks so similar, even if the reason for why it has a tilde on top is completely different, is that often used as a replacement. Some even simply use R for both, but that is a bad habit. This of course only goes for if you write transcribe instead of using magical script, which has absolutely no indication on how to say words. And even if you can piece it mostly together from the parts, are there always 2 possibilities on how to pronounce compound symbols. So you will simply need to learn how to say certain words. For consonants have we b, p, d, t, f, g, k, h, j, k, l, m, r, v, th. As you can see, far less than our regular alphabet gives away. And while those sound pairs are both used in standard forms, can always one be overtaken by the other entirely as a quirk of some magical creature's speech. And those are the most standard swaps that happen. Now, this only applies for vowels, but in some cases will they have more complex rules than just to swap out sounds. And other sounds like I or Ö too are used. So it would always pay to look up what a race does beforehand. Finally, the last important thing to know is that everything will be spoken if you see a transcript. If you see this, you may be inclined to say Koln, but in reality it is said Ko-Olm. This will be all you need to know on how to read and write correctly. The next class will we finally start with the actual language, as there is none to near no grammar existent in magical language. It is all about understanding how words are used and understanding intentions.